A lot of Hispanic and Latino parents will literally try to teach you at a young age to not be friends with black people. And it's fucking disgusting. They show you racism, anti-Blackness, like colorism at a fucking young age. You could be a dark-skinned Latino and yet you will get a lot of fucking hate. Not only that, media will even fucking show that shit too. Where literally they show that white Latinos are literally rich, smart, educated, and they're always holy. But when it comes to black people or Afro-Latinos, they're ghetto, they're poor, uneducated, and they're criminals.
Hello my good people, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking how anti-Blackness is still deeply rooted in Latino culture. And there are so many Latinos, they were taught to hate black people, you know. They were taught to distance themselves from black people. And many families want their people not to date or even to marry black people, you know, to stay out of the sun so that their skin doesn't get dark, you know. They were taught that whiteness was beauty and blackness was a shame. So in this video, I'm going to explain why even the Mexican government did not even recognize the black Latinos for centuries until recent years. So stay with me as we watch the clips, then you come back with more commentary. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing so you never miss any update from my videos. Let's dive into it.
A lot of people don't understand when I say that Mexicans are culturally racist. They think that I'm calling us openly racist. We are culturally racist, and this is how. Part of our culture is to frown upon dark-skinned people. It's been passed down to us by the Spaniards, by our colonizers, by the people that conquered us, taught us that dark skin is inferior, light skin is superior. We were taught that. It was passed down to us, meaning it's part of our culture. We are culturally racist in this aspect. That doesn't mean I go out in the streets and want to hurt black people because they're black. Right. It means that our teachings, the way we're raised, is that we are raised to subconsciously believe that dark skin is inferior and light skin is superior. Another element in our Mexican culture is Univision News, Univision channel. That channel is run by white Latinos. The ideologies and subliminal teachings that they teach is very similar to Fox News. White supremacist-ish. They make efforts to depict dark-skinned people as criminals. That whenever they even bother sharing news about dark-skinned people is when they do something wrong. But yet, when they want to mention anything that has to do with light-skinned people, specifically white people, is to depict them as them doing good deeds around the world, feeding the homeless, etc. You get it. Yeah. My grandmother was visiting one day from Mexico. She's never lived in the United States. She has no idea what life is out here. She was watching Univision News, where they depicted a black American committing a crime. She turned around and said, "Oye, estos negros solo estorban, ¿verdad? Hey, these black folks, all they do is get in the way, huh?" Here's the interesting part. She's never met a black person in her life. She has no idea what it's like to interact with a black person, but yet she already has an opinion about black people as a whole. Why? Because part of our culture, in this particular case, Univision News, since we were children, we have been subliminally taught the blacks are bad, criminals, etc. And whites are good, decent, giving, saviors, etc. We're taught that. Hearing her express such a hateful remark about a people that I knew for a fact she's never even interacted with. You don't even know a black person. How dare you come here to this country and have a whole opinion about these people? I resented her deeply for it. I regret it because you can't hate her for that. she never got the opportunity to learn what you have. I got the privilege of learning things that I self-taught. Since she's been a child, she's been working in the fields, never had the opportunity to sit and read a book to educate, nothing. All she ever has to teach her anything was this racist, biased news program. How could I blame her? She doesn't even know any better. And even if I sat with her today, I don't even think I could help her understand at this point, because she has lived 80 years worth of only understanding this mentality. A lot of people go to their graves thinking this is normal.
I feel like something people don't talk about is like the prejudice that we have within Latino communities. So I grew up in Miami, like most of us are Latino in Miami, but I did like experience like racism and things like that because of my skin color, because of my features. So that's something that like I struggled with. But at the end of the day, like my mom, I remember something she would do is like, when Miss Universe would come on, she'd be like, look at all like the brown ladies. Like sometimes it would be like Miss Venezuela was like una morena. And she'd be like, look at her. Because my mom is a white Latina. So we look different in some ways. So that was kind of like a shock because where I was from in Nicaragua, I didn't experience that. We were all brown, you know, we all look similar to me. But in Miami, we have so many different cultures. And unfortunately, there is that prejudice within our community.
When I was younger, I had a lot of internalized colorism in the sense that, you know, coming from a Latino background, specifically like Mexican American, in my family, there were definitely some elements of colorism, right? And where I was able to see how those that were lighter skinned, those that had colored eyes were being treated better, especially by the Mexican and Latino media that I was consuming, like the novelas that always had the protagonist lighter skin with colored eyes. You know, it almost felt like the moment that they're born light skinned with colored eyes, they were giving a Televisa contract or something. Or how when I was younger and had long hair, people would tell me, pareces indio, te pareces a Tarzan. And this is all also supported by evidence. We know that there was a study done in Mexico that showed that even those with lighter skin tone have higher access to money, have higher access to quality education compared to those that have a darker skin shade. But anybody out there that thought that being brown or having brown eyes is a bad thing, ignore all that. I hope that you are looking at yourself today and know that brown is beautiful. You know, I remember being younger and wanting to wear colored eye contact just so I can have like blue ones, right? And it's ridiculous, right? I'm glad that I've never done that to give the appearance that I had colored eyes or like blue green eyes. You know, and as I look at my brown eyes right now, I'm very happy that this is who I am. I'm very happy to have unlearned that internalized colorism and continue unlearning it, especially too because when you go online, you continue seeing how it's perpetuated, right? Like the other day, I was watching a video in where they were calling brown eyes caca eyes. And when you think about it, a lot of us have been indoctrinated like that, especially as how certain parts of Latin America have strides towards blancamiento, or this idea of wanting to mejorar la raza. You know, but be proud of your brown skin, be part of your brown eyes, be part of the indigenous ancestry that continues to live inside you, that is reflected through how you present in this world. Because we know it's been many years of that continued erasure, but it's up to us to ensure that we love ourselves and who we come from, and always remember that.
A lot of these celebrities believe this shit too. And also, they do blackface. And that's why a lot of people don't want to unionize when it comes to the Hispanic Latino community, because of the amount of fucking anti-Blackness, the racism towards black people. And not only that, y'all forget that literally black people have influenced our fucking community so much. From technology, from food, to even music. And some of y'all bitches be dancing to those music that literally were influenced by black people. And it's even worse in this fucking comment section. People are showing their true fucking colors. And that's why people fucking hate us. Because the amount of anti-Blackness, anti-Asians. Because literally when it comes to someone who is Asian, say they're Vietnamese, Latinos and the Hispanic people will call that Vietnamese person Chino, aka Chinese. You could be a Philippine and still be called Chinese. You could be from Turkey. You could be from the Western Asia and literally be called Indian or Indio. And yet you be like, I'm not Indian, I'm Turkish, or somewhere that literally have dark skinned Asian people. They will literally say like, no, you're Indian. They will literally force that down your throat and try to say it's a compliment when it's not.
Black people in Mexico were not even acknowledged until recent years. Their presence was not acknowledged by the government up until very recent years. But yet, they have been there since days of slavery. You understand? So, since the days of slavery, a lot of the slaves in North America, in the United States, a lot of the slaves ran to Mexico to hide. And a lot of them have been living there. And not only that, but a lot of these Spaniards, they brought some slaves to Mexico too. So black people have been in Mexico for hundreds of years. But Mexican government has not acknowledged their presence until very recent years. And that is why I made a video and called it Afro-Mexican. Because these people have been there for many years with their own communities, speaking Spanish, of course, but they acknowledge their African ancestry. They acknowledge it. That's why they self-identify as Afro-Mexican, because they're acknowledging their African roots. And the government has not bothered with them. When you watch telenovelas, Spanish telenovelas, have you ever seen a black man? No, never. But yet, black people have been there since the Europeans have been there for hundreds of years.
The best example of how anti-black the Latinx community can be and is that the Dominican Republic and Haiti is on the same island, but only the Dominican Republic is considered Latin America, to most people at least. Like, it's only been in the past few years that I realized that since I'm Haitian American, I am also Afro-Latinx. In the way, it doesn't even sit right with me because I've never been considered that by the Latinx community is wild. Like, even on our island of Hispaniola, the anti-Blackness, the racism, the colorism is wild. And I don't know, like, it literally blows my mind.
I lived in Miami for almost a year, and while I was there, in the apartment building that I was living in Pembroke Pines, there were some Mexican guys doing some repairs on the roof. They saw me pass by walking my dog, and they say, "Beautiful, morena." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And they say, "Where are you from?" And I say, "Cuba." They say, "Cuba? We didn't know people in Cuba look like you." And I said, "Like me, like what? Black?" And he just stopped on his tracks and changed the subject. The majority of Latino people are very racist. I didn't know that I was living in a very racist country until I met my Jamaican husband, and he made me realize how racist people in Cuba were. And once your eyes are open to this, you cannot unsee it. There was a time in Jamaica when you could watch Spanish television. We had 2 TV stations, Univision and Telemundo. These TV stations, each of them had 1 black anchor. One had 1 female for the news, and the other one had a male, 2 black people. Both TV stations show a wide array of telenovelas, which is basically Spanish soap operas. And these telenovelas were made and produced in Latin America. Brazil, Colombia, Mexico are one of the biggest places where soap operas are made. Now you tell me now, how a Colombian telenovela of 350 episodes don't have 1 black person in it. If you see a black actor on a telenovela, is actually playing a slave or a character that they are trying to bring back to life, like Celia Cruz. So these have just added to that white supremacy and had made people from other places believe that black people doesn't exist in Latin America any at all. So if as a Jamaican, you travel to Miami and you suffer what he did, don't be surprised. I'm sorry this happens to you, but it's a sad truth. Hopefully this will change soon in the future.
Why are people so shocked that colorism exists in Mexico and Latin America? There's this creator, she was sharing her mom said that she doesn't want her bringing any morenitos to her house. And basically just how her mom doesn't like people that are darker skinned. And people are in the comments all shocked, like, oh my God, this is still happening. Yes, this is something that is still happening. And this is why I feel like it's important for us to talk about these things instead of acting like it doesn't exist, because it does. And it's so bad everywhere. It's not just in Mexico, it's in all Latin America. People will give you opportunities based on the color of your skin. People will respect you based on the color of your skin. And then they'll pull things like, oh, well, you're not like every dark-skinned person. So weird, but it's a thing, and it's really sad. And I'm so happy that we're having these conversations online.
So my parents call me Prieto. Prieto means dark. Or Negro. Negro obviously means black. And that's literally what they call me, right? My cousin call me Negrito. And I guess in Mexico, it's so desensitized. But again, in Mexico, slavery was abolished way before the US. So maybe that's why it's not a thing. I don't know. Now, with that being said, I'm the dark kind of Mexican, obviously, right? So I'm actual brown, not peachy brown. I'm brown. It's now becoming a thing. More recently, I started hearing about colorism. Like colorism, this is the first year that I hear about it. I've never heard about it in my life. Racism, obviously, we grew up with that, right? Like we grew up knowing about it. I've always refused to be a victim or whatever. Nonetheless, I acknowledge that it's a real thing, right? It exists. So in Mexico, the racism and colorism stuff isn't as apparent, but I guess it's a thing. I've never experienced it, but then again, I don't go to Mexico too often. Yeah, here in the US, I don't think people can call or have those nicknames for other people, especially if their actual color is not the same color, right? So I don't think a white person calls things to people, which is kind of weird. That in Mexico it is allowed. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. Are Mexicans racist? I don't think so. It comes from a place of love when they say those things. At least that's what I think. But let me know what you guys think.
So for a very long time, the Mexican government did not officially recognize Afro-Mexican. For more than 100 years, Mexico pushed the idea that the whole country was mestizo, meaning a mixed indigenous plus Spanish. So this national identity erased black people on purpose because the government wanted a unified identity. So anything that showed black diversity or racial difference was ignored. Black Mexicans did not fit their political narrative, so they were excluded from the census, from the history books, So anti-black attitude in Latin America is so deep. And many countries in Latin America, they deny black populations because they associate blackness with slavery and see black communities as lower status. So the government wanted to appear white-leaning to the world. So Mexico, recognizing black Mexicans, meant acknowledging racism, which the government avoided for years. So even though Mexicans had African slaves brought during the colonial era, Afro-Mexicans like Gaspar Yaga, who led the successful slave rebellion, the government removed these stories from the education system. So people grew up believing that there were no black Mexicans. So the UN and Global Human Rights Organization, they pushed Mexico to acknowledge racial inequality and count Afro-descendants and include them in social programs. So Mexico first recognized Afro-Mexicans in the Constitution in 2019 and then counted them in the 2020 census for the first time. So this means that for 500 years, black Mexican existed, but the government acted like they didn't. So colorism in Mexico is not just personal bias, it's cultural and institutional. So in Mexico, the lighter your skin is, the more opportunities you're given. And if you're dark-skinned, people assume you're dangerous, uneducated, or even poor. And we have seen so many videos that Afro-Latinos talk about all the time, how they are being stopped more, questioned more, and even judged more, simply because of their skin tone doesn't fit in the Mexican beauty standards. Look at Mexican TV, especially Televisa. Who do you see? White actors, blue eyes, people who look like Europeans, And those who are brown or black, they play the role of maids or even thieves, So the Televisa pushed the idea that light skin was good, and dark skin is associated to crime, to trouble, poverty, violence, and even suffering. This is what we call media brainwashing. And for decades, this is what the media taught Mexicans who are worthy and who aren't, Afro-Latinos, they share their experiences, how they're being treated as foreigners in their own country, They got stared at, they get mocked, or even told to go back to Africa. They are being denied job opportunities just because of their skin color, They even have to go an extra mile to prove that they are Mexicans, even though their families have lived there for centuries. And this issue of anti-Blackness is everywhere, even in Africa, in Asia. People still believe, there's those who still believe that the lighter you are, the more privileged you are, and the more opportunities you're going to get, Even in Africa, so many girls, they're bleaching their skin, believing that they're going to be favored by the society or even by men, They believe that when you're light, it's when you're beautiful, but that's not the case. We cannot measure beauty based on skin color. We have very beautiful black people. So I hope people would stop defining beauty and success based on skin color and start recognizing themselves and accepting their skin color just the way you are, because black is beautiful. So thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.